I'm so sorry.
Okay, we've got some feedback. Do you have both of the volumes of your computer and your phone on possibly?
I'm trying to turn off the other one here, so, okay, that one's off.
There you go.
Perfect.
Okay, Faye, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, good morning. Dr. Chen, if you would raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Wayne Chen,
During such times as I hold the above office,
during such times as I hold the above office,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and a privilege to say those words. Thank you.
Yay, thank you. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Okay, all right. So with that, let's get right into it. Good morning, everybody. This is the hearing board of the South Coast Air Quality Management District. We are in session today, Tuesday, July the 26th, 2022. This year is flying by. The time is just after 9 o'clock, and we are meeting remotely via Zoom due to the current pandemic, that the the orders are still in place, and we are to meet remotely, and the fact that the South Coast AQMD public hearing room is not open to the public. Today we have one item before us, that of a Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. It is on consent, case number 6191-3, and this is for an interim variance that'll be on consent today. It's regarding rules 203B, condition number 4 of the permit to operate, subject to the conditions which will be listed in the findings and decisions, which is exhibit 3, and I'll mark them shortly. And it's 1 through 6 of that exhibit. The petitioners exhibit, they have, together with the South Coast attorneys, they have the joint stipulation, which will be marked number 1. And number 2 will be the declaration of Carol Y. Kaufman, and that has attachments A and B, which I'm going to include in that exhibit number. And both parties have agreed to place into evidence attachments A and B. And in addition, both parties agree that all prior evidence in this matter, including from the decision to grant, which I granted the ex parte emergency variance, that'll also be incorporated by reference in this hearing. Okay, and then exhibit 3, that's the proposed findings and decisions for the order to grant the interim variance. And that will go through the date of August 31st, 2022, when the regular variance is scheduled to be heard. And I did not see, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Mohan, I did not see any emails from you or anyone else. So I don't have those to mark into exhibit unless you did have some.
I did send to the clerk
Okay.
of the board, and there was a response back from Ms. Kaufman.
Great. Okay, so let's mark that HB number 1. And I apologize, I combed my email and I could not find any, but I'm glad you brought it up. So I'm glad I asked you about it. And then if there's any one from the public who wants to make a statement, now is the time to raise your hand so that we can recognize you, either by doing so, or if you're on the phone, by letting us know. But I don't see anybody raising their hand, and I don't think you have any calls coming in now, Teresa, correct?
No, nobody raised a hand.
Okay.
This is Anthony.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to deliberate, since this is on consent. Initially, we will look for good cause and then the 6 findings based on the information that came before us. And if somebody wants to start the deliberation in reference to this case. And Mohan, since you had questions, if you want to start off with your questions and the answers that you got for your questions, you want to start there?
My question were to find out if there were any, with the petition we got, they indicated the engine ran 172.3 hours. I wanted to find out as of today's date or if there have been any subsequent more hours on the engine, and Ms. Kaufman replied, no, it still stayed at 172.3. The other issue was excess emission, while they didn't put any for PM or SOx, which is very negligible because it's a propane engine. And it's not necessary to have it for the interim. As long as if they have it, they can bring it forward for the regular variant. So those were my 2 issues which Ms. Kaufman addressed and said they will look for the, that they'll bring forward during the regular variants if they get the excess emission for PM10 and SOx. But again, they're very negligible because it's a propane engine.
Right. Okay. So in reference to that, I had a question because in the emergency ex parte, it was a long equation, and they had to reduce it down. And I had on there that the NOx was 0.24 pounds per day, CO was 0.22 pounds per day, and HC was 0.6 pounds per day. Did you get that also?
Yeah, I think they converted it to grams per brake horsepower hour. Yeah, that's
Yeah, the grams per brake horsepower, but in this particular for this hearing, the document, and I believe it's in the declaration that they had that's where the numbers that I just quoted came off of there. So I just wanted to make sure that it was the same as what you had and that there was not a difference.
what I have is what's in the petition, and what the equation is just multiplying by the horsepower of the engine with the number of hours.
Yeah, and that's what they reduced it to.
Right.
Okay, great. All right. Any other comments that you had on this case?
Well, I think since we're looking at good cause initially, and I'll go through that, to find good cause, we have to find that they're in violation or will be in violation imminently. In the case of interim, they have to be imminently in violation. And I think in Ms. Kaufman in her petition and in the proposed finding also said, they had a couple of failures with the power supply, so they've run. But as of early June, even though they were about 142 hours, she indicated they didn't feel that they had to worry. It could still meet the 200 hours limit based on that's imposed on the permit condition. But subsequently, later in June, they had 2 other episodes where about 30 hours were added. So that caused concern, and because then the numbers added up to 172. And so that's why they applied as soon as possible for the ex parte variance and the interim. So and this is always a challenge for engines. At what point do you say it's imminently going to be in violation, or are they going to be in violation? And in the past, when we had turned back companies, would come very early because the hours were not there yet, and they were not in violation or imminently in violation. But in the case here, and I know we have to do it on a case by case, and the case here, I think we can find that they will, 172.3, they have to do another black start, which is 2 hours, and then they do have to do the testing for till the rest of the year. So, and they have not been, Edison has not identified the causes of the failure for the last two incident, at least not yet, which resulted in 30 hours. So there is a very strong likelihood something is going on and that they could have another episode. So they could be imminently in violation. So in that regard, I think they meet that criteria. And the other one is, could that have been avoided? This was beyond the control. So they couldn't have, I think there was one case where a vehicle ran into the pole and caused, but most of the hours were due to Edison's either doing maintenance and it shut down, or the other, whatever the other reasons were for where the supply, where the power was disrupted basically for a period of time, and some of it several days. So I think that it was beyond their control and it couldn't have been avoided because they've been quite, they've been tracking it and they've been doing minimal testing on the engines. So did they do exercise diligence? I believe they'd exercise diligence in filing as soon as they realized late June that this could be an issue. They file ex parte emergency, which they obtained from you, Madam Chair, and then they subsequently file for the interim and the regular variance. So, and the denial of the variance will be unreasonable because as they indicated, this is a vital infrastructure that the engine is generating power for communication that is utilized by multiple agencies, and so it is imperative that those that the either repeater the microwave stations are continuously in operation. So I think for those reasons, I believe in this case I can find good cause, and then so that we can proceed to the interim variance later.
Yes, I agree with you, Mohan, especially the fact that it was not due to anything that they did. It was coming from a third party that caused the outage. And what I'm unfortunately seeing too often, actually, is normally Edison was very good about notifying companies when they were going to do a maintenance and there was going to be an outage on a particular area. And I'm witnessing that they are not as thorough, maybe that's another word, thorough doing that. And so some of these companies, especially something like this, that it's a public service that the MWD of Southern California provides to several counties and all of their member agencies. They've got, I think, either 30 or 40 member agencies of all of the smaller water districts. They're the umbrella agency over all of our city and county facilities. And I think it would be a great disservice if we didn't grant it. And that was originally why I granted it, the emergency on ex parte when I first got this. And that was, gosh, that was July the 1st that I got the emergency. So I think everything that you have said is absolutely on point. And I am hoping that Edison is going to be doing a better job of letting organizations, especially like this, that do provide a public service, better notification. Maybe even give them a little bit more time, because normally if they do a maintenance, they have, it's on the books a good 6 months, if not more, on their schedule. So why can't they let whomever it's going to affect, and they know who it is, let them know as well, so these companies can plan better for it and not have an outage that's going to be an emergency situation and or not provide that particular service to the public. That's really what concerns me the most, is that communication that is vital to MWD of Southern California, to all of their clients, customers, if you will. So anyway, with that, I do agree with what you had to say on that, Mohan. Anything else, board members? Did you want to bring up any other issues on this?
Hi, this is Dr. Chen.
Yes, Dr. Chen, go right ahead. We welcome your comments.
Thank you. This is my first hearing, so I'm very honored to participate. I think just to reflect, I think the power outages may, in part, and I could be wrong, not a specialist in this, be related to global warming and the effects that we're all seeing in the news. So we probably might expect more of these requests going forward. So, and I think the request is very reasonable, right? If they don't use that propane generator to maintain their telecommunications, et cetera, then it's going to impact all of the clients within the area. So to me, this is kind of a pretty straightforward and reasonable ask. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chen, for your comment. Anyone else? Okay. All right, so let's go ahead then, and we can vote on.
Madam Chair,
yes,
did you second Mr. Balaka Palan's motion, or?
Well, I didn't hear a formal motion yet because we're not done with the deliberation. And once we're done with deliberation, then we'll do the motion. So the comments would come first. Did you have a comment, Mr. Ali?
No. I was just curious. So will we normally comment? So we comment before, but.
There's two opportunities. Okay, so there's the initial deliberation, okay, and we make a comment, and then after that, there's the formal motion, and when the motion and it's been seconded, then we can discuss it again based on whatever that motion is and how that motion is worded, and then we vote again, and then we go, like in this case, we'll go on to the 6 findings after we do good cause. If this were not on consent, because it's an interim variance, we would have bifurcated it completely, and we would have heard a complete hearing on the good cause first from both sides, and then we would have voted on that. And then if we found that there was good cause, we would have gone into the 6 findings after that. And that's how we bifurcate that. But because this is on consent and everything has been stipulated, and in fact, many things have been put into the record, we have to still vote on the 6 findings, but it's not a full hearing, in other words, because we're on consent and because there's so many things that have been stipulated too. Did you want to add to that, Mohan?
Yeah, I do. Even though it's on consent, I do believe we have to go through the 2 steps.
Yes.
And we have to go through the hearing, I mean, for good cause, and then
Right.
proceed and go through the 6 finding for the interim.
But what I was trying to explain to them in reference to deliberation, we won't be hearing, for instance, like opening comments from both sides, and we won't be hearing closing comments from both sides because they've already agreed to all of the things that we would have been deliberating on anyway. So that's what I was trying to explain to them, and where the deliberations do fit in to the process. Okay. Any other comments or questions about that? Okay. All right. Did you want to continue with that, Mohan, since you started that on the?
Well, I can make the motion. In the matter of the Metropolitan Water District, Southern California, case number 6191-3. I move that we find good cause to proceed towards the next phase with the interim hearing for the interim variance.
Okay, and that will be, did you want to name off because Dr. Chen, this is his first time, I think maybe if we are as detailed as possible, like we would normally be for a regular hearing, that might be helpful to him and Ms. Conacher-Macklin as well.
No, that will be when we do the interim variance. Then I'll, if I'm making the motion, then I'll go through in detail.
This
is just moving towards just good cause to move towards the interim variance, and
well,
the interim.
That's what this is, the interim that we're going to consider. We're not considering the regular one today, with not until the 31st.
Right. So we have to vote on the good cause first to move to the interim. So
okay, go ahead. So go ahead and finish your motion.
that's it. That was it. I find that we have good cause to proceed to the hearing of for the interim variance.
Okay, do I hear a second? Okay, Mr. Ali. there's a motion and a second. And we will, if there's no other addition to that, let's go ahead and vote. And Ms. Conager Macklin,
Yes.
Dr. Chen,
Yes, please.
Mr. Ali,
Yes,
maker of the motion, Mohan Balagopalan.
Yes.
And I also vote yes, so that passes. Okay, so we can go to the 6 findings of the item. And if you look at the proposed findings and decisions in exhibit number 3, it's a good place. And I'm saying all of this, which I know is repetitive, especially to Mohan and probably to Mr. Ali as well. I'm just wanting to introduce all of this process and where things can be found to our newer members or our members who are not here as often. So forgive me for being a little bit repetitive here, but I just want to make sure that they know where to find things. And normally in the decisions and findings and decisions, which in this case is number 3, this is to grant the interim variance. And if you look through it, you'll also be able to see the justification that each of the companies have or entities have. And you can find also in this case, like on the last page, the emissions are there. But a good place like to start is, where did I have that already? Is in the 6 findings. You can see on page 2 at the bottom, the findings of good cause to proceed without public notice. And that was what the emergency ex parte was all about, that they needed it right away and they didn't have time to have a regular notified hearing. So that's why it was done on an emergency ex parte. And then this interim, because both sides agreed, it was done on consent, that there wasn't anything that was outstanding that either side. Did you want to add to that? Mohan? Did you want to add anything else to that we need to make them aware of?
No, I think they did a very good job in addressing the 6 findings in the
I see.
finding and decision document.
Right, okay. So, and I will start that off and also say for all of the reasons mentioned before that I can make the 6 findings on this. They obviously, it was not their fault. They didn't see this coming. Unfortunately, like I said before, I'm really hoping that Edison gets better about that. They used to be really good about that. But in this case, and in too many others, I'm seeing that we're getting pushed up against the wall here. And then also, of course, that they are going to be in violation of the rules and that part of the permit. And that all of the conditions that are listed that the district has wants them to adhere to, they've agreed to. And I think they are in good order. So I can make the 6 findings as well. Any other comments?
I just wanted to add, I think what the petitioner said in the findings and document in 1B, it said until June 20th, based on the cumulative hours, they had 139.4. It was reasonable for petitioner to expect the engine would remain in compliance with the 200 hours. So even though this is something that probably for other cases, even though we take case by case, even 139 hours, they did not, they were not that worried because they figured they can still meet the 200 hours, but then subsequently 2 other outages happened that
Right.
caused them to concern. So,
Right.
so
And-
that for me, this tells, if somebody comes in with 100 hours or whatever it is, and ask for a variance, you're not imminently in violation or will be in violation. So, but we have to take everything on a case by case basis. But here with 172.3 hours, they are very close to the 200 hours, and and it's not clear what is causing the outages, and this could happen again, even though they haven't, after the petition was filed, they have not operated the engine.
And not only that, but here we are in the summertime and the utilities are going to be, it's going to be very difficult for the utilities to be able to provide the amount of electricity to all of the various service territories that each of them have, especially the investor-owned utilities, which there's 3 of them in the state. And even though they can wheel in power from other areas, it costs a lot of money to do that, and they'd rather have it generated out of their own facilities per se. But that being said, there's also PSPS, and the problem with PSPS, which I'm hoping all of you are aware of, that's coming from the utility companies, you can, I'll use my house as an example. Okay, I live in a regular neighborhood. However, I'm on a circuit that the transformer for that circuit is out in open area. There is some brush there, but do I think there's enough that would cause a fire? Personally, no, but the utility may. And they would then therefore turn us off, even though we are not in the midst of like a forest or an area that has brush around us. We can get turned off because the transformer is in that kind of a facility. So like this one here, it's very possible in Corona that they, even though they may be in a populated area with buildings and so on and so forth, where you don't think that they would be subjected to the PSPS turn off by the utility, they can be turned off. Depends on where their transformer is and where their circuit is and how far that circuit goes out. So they could be subjected to that as well, even though the AQMD has a rule for that and those hours are not counted against them. In that case, the bottom line is they get turned off. And I'm hoping that doesn't happen in this case. And I'm hoping, like I said before, that they get better notification. But that being said, I think they were very smart about coming before us and requesting the variances. So, okay, Mohan, if you wanted to, unless there's any other comments.
I was just going to add also, they mentioned in whether they've given any consideration to curtailing operation. They did look at the, or at least provide the analysis. They could bring a 49 horsepower engine, which doesn't need a permit, but it would be diesel. And essentially it would have, even though it would not need a permit, there would be more emission from that. And they also did mention they have a battery system on site, but they can only get 6 to 12 hours of power from that, depending on the load. So they do have some options available, but they are not something that they're looking at, because one is a remote site, and then they have to get fuel and so forth. And they did indicate some of the limitation getting the fuel storage and up on that the peak area, wherever there's it's a remote area from what we see on the map, so it's not easily accessible.
Right.
So yes, so they have given consideration to curtailing operation, and they give the reasons why they didn't think they could do that.
Yeah, they provided that map. That was a good map that they provided. So, okay.
And lastly, I was going to add, this is again a propane engine, so it's a lot cleaner than a diesel engine running, and with diesel particulate, which is a toxic contaminant, so you don't have that with the propane engine.
Right. I agree with you there. Any other comments from board members? Yes, Dr. Chen?
I just wanted to add for the record that I reviewed the petitioner's response in the document entitled "Before the Hearing Board of the South Coast Air Quality Management District, Proposed Findings, Decisions," and their response seemed to be reasonable and to satisfy the 6 criteria. So I concur with your previous statement, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. All right. Okay, Mohan, did you want to go ahead and continue? Or did you want me to make that motion for the?
It's up to you. So,
Okay, well, I can go ahead and make that motion. in the matter of the South Coast AQMD versus MWD of Southern California, case number 6191-3, facility ID number 152209, which is located at Pleasant Peak, east of Corona, latitude 334743, longitude 11736. We therefore are able, or I am able to make the 6 findings to grant this interim variance, which will begin today, the 26th of July, and will expire the date of the regular variance, which is August 31st, 2022. It's when we will hear that regular variance unless they can comply sooner than that. And based on the 6 findings and as stated in the proposed findings and decisions of exhibit number 3, this is in regards to rules 203B, condition number 4 of the permit to operate, subject to conditions listed in the findings and decisions 1 through 6 in exhibit 3, and regarding the equipment of propane emergency generator engine rated at 74 brake horsepower with air fuel ratio controller and SCR, which is selective catalytic reduction. Again, I mentioned the time of the variance. We mentioned the 6, or I should say the excess emissions of NOx at 0.24 pounds per day, CO 0.22 pounds per day, HC 0.6 pounds per day, and that I can make all 6 findings as stipulated in exhibit 3.
Just a clarification. I think even though they said they have SCR, I don't believe it's SCR. I think what they do have is a 3-way catalytic converter with the air to fuel control.
I'm glad you clarified that, because I was looking at that and I'm thinking whether they should have called it an SCR or not. So I'll take that amendment to the motion. Were you able to get that out, Teresa, what Mohan said? Okay, great. Okay, with that, do we have a second?
Ali.
Okay.
Seconds.
Mr. Ali, all right, any discussion on the motion? Okay, if not, let's go ahead and vote. Dr. Chen,
Oh, yes.
Ms. Conager Macklin,
Yes.
Mr. Ali,
Yes.
Mr. Balagopalan,
Yes.
and I also vote yes. So it's unanimous that we will go ahead and grant this interim hearing, and MWD has been pretty good about giving us all of the information that they have before us and sharing it with our legal department and making sure that they've got everything ready to go. So unless they come into some other situation, we will take this up again on the 31st of August for the regular variance. Okay, and with that, the matter is completed and we are done with that matter. And the matter is closed.
Madam
Okay,
Chair,
yes,
I just want to give a heads up to the board members. Some documents were sent regarding tomorrow's hearing. So please be on the lookout for those. They were sent electronically
okay. Okay, and they were sent when?
today during this hearing. So they should be in your inboxes currently or very shortly.
And I wanted to thank Dr. Chen, this being your first time. Again, welcome. And thank you again, Ms. Adrienne Conager Macklin, for stepping in for Mr. Pearman. I appreciate both of you taking the time to do so and taking the time to be our alternates. I know this is a large undertaking, and even though it's for a day, there's a lot of work that goes into it, a lot of reading of the material and digesting all of it so that you can make a prudent decision on this. So I appreciate that. And thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. Balagopalan and Mr. Ali for being here this morning and I enjoy the conversation and the discussion that we have about this so that we are able to make wise decisions in reference to these cases. Okay, with that, we are adjourned unless there was anything else somebody wanted to say.
Teresa, for the case tomorrow, I think they did send an email also last week or the week before, which we got. So there was another, additional, besides the PowerPoint they sent just now, there was another email. I think you had forwarded.
Okay, I will check and make sure that it's been forwarded and this is from the parties,
Yes,
from the petitioner.
petitioner, yeah.
Yes, okay. I'll make sure that all the parties have that as well.
Okay.
Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day, and my regular board members, I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, we are adjourned.